Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining today. I think we've got quite a few people on. If you can use the chat function on the right of the screen to give me a thumbs up, just so you know you're there and I'm not speaking to myself. That always helps. Right, so good morning from oh, thanks, Sam. That's great. Thank you. Well, good morning from a very sunny Warrington today. That's where I'm serving my working from home sentence. Thank you very much. Thanks all. And yes, thank you very much for joining us on this first webinar of a series focusing on business reengineering. One way or the other, we have all been forced to adapt to the current crisis and perhaps even re-engineer our business operations. This is why at Prolific North we thought we'd try to inspire you with a series of highly accomplished speakers that have achieved future long-term growth in their organizations, in the hope that their lessons and principles can help inform your own. So joining me today is Mark Mallinder. Mark has worked client side, agency side, and as a business owner. At DFS, he was head of marketing in charge of an 85 million budget, 85 million pound even budget, and led its sponsorship of Team GB for the 2016 Olympics in Rio. He then joined Hangar Seven as managing director, achieving revenues of over 15 million pounds and employing 165 people across 4 offices before leading its 8-figure sales to the Hut Group in 2017. If you've read Prolific North today, you might have noticed that the Hut Group are starting their own airline as well. So that's today's news. Mark successfully exited a year later and is now working with directors of established independent marketing and production agencies across the UK. So today, Mark will run through a presentation for about 15 minutes or so, and then he'll take questions, which you'll be able to ask through the chat that you've hopefully already made use of. Yes, Mark, thanks so much for accepting our invitation, and over to you.
Thanks, Alexandra. Morning, everyone. So as Alexandra said, I'm Mark Mallinder, and I'm here today to talk to you about operational efficiency in agency businesses. So I'd love to be doing this face-to-face, but I'm sure by now we're all getting used to talking to laptops and screens, so we'll go that way. So here goes. So first of all, what makes me qualified to talk to you about it? Well, over the last 29 years, I've worked as part of teams. I've led teams, I've worked client side, agency side, I've had my own business, I've bought and sold businesses, and each of these experiences I've done some well and some not so well. So I like to think I've learned a few things along the way. So I'll start by saying that in my experience, many of the inefficiencies in agency businesses are caused by problems that we create for ourselves. The solution becomes clear when we look objectively at our people, our processes, our culture, and our behaviours. When we get the right people doing the right things at the right time, with great communication and clarity on roles and responsibilities, it stops wasting time, energy, and money and unlocks the true potential of the business. So, as the world's on pause, there can be no better time for us to reflect and review our businesses. Many of us, I'm sure, will need to restructure to face the commercial challenges presented by COVID-19. So do you know what that's going to look like for your business? And are you ready? Here's a list of some of the things that challenge our operational effectiveness. And I'm going to read through these for you. So there's poor briefing, poor communication, meetings, too many unstructured meetings, too many meetings altogether, inappropriate attendees at meetings, poor attitudes of people, pulling in different directions, poor training and knowledge, unnecessary duplication, politics, poor leadership, inappropriate process, either too heavy or too light, lack of commercial awareness, lack of focus, inconsistent performance, and lack of sales. Now, of course, this list is by no means exhaustive, but it generally covers many of the issues that agencies commonly face. I can guarantee every agency suffers to some degree from this list. You might only recognise a couple of things in your business, but if you're really honest, you'll probably recognise an element of most of it. It might not always be present, but I don't know any agencies that are consistently good at everything. Now, but let's be realistic for a moment. Some degree of these problems are to be expected. Firstly, we're people businesses, so this means dealing with the complexity and diversity of our own people. Also, most agencies have grown up organically, often with some degree of M&A for larger agencies, and that means compromises have necessarily been made on the way up. It's just the implications of this are not always properly recognised or understood as we get bigger. For example, an agency might start off as a handful of talented, motivated individuals working together to build a business. Over a number of years, that business grows and matures, maybe even acquiring another business on the way to achieve scale. In this example, the ways of working have to adapt as more process and structure is required to maintain efficiency. Have your people grown with the business? Have new people been effectively integrated into the culture of the business? Do they need additional help and support, or is the fit for both parties no longer right? Just think about your own agency for a minute. If you were starting again from where you are now, would you recreate exactly the same thing? If not, recognise and appreciate that everything you've done has worked to get you to the point that you are now, but then be prepared to break it a little bit and rebuild for your future vision. So, I've got a few more practical solutions for you. So, I'll talk you through 6 steps that you can take to improve your operational efficiency. Step 1, identify the issue. First step is to recognise and identify the problem and challenge facing your business. Take an objective view of your business. You probably can't do that for yourself, so get someone to do it for you. But make sure it covers 1, your numbers, 2, a top-down view of your business, and 3, a bottoms-up view of your business. Then review it all together and identify the gaps. From this, you can break down the challenges and problems facing it and create a plan to address them. Step 2, have a commercial focus. Do you have reliable numbers? Do you know what they're telling you? Your biggest cost line will be people. How many of you know your labour cost percentage, for example? What should it be? Do you know what the target range is to ensure your team's operating efficiently, delivering great service to your clients, and making you money? And if it's not on target, do you understand why? If you remember that list from earlier, still shown on that slide, every time those issues are present, it's costing your business time and money by unnecessarily inflating your largest cost line, your people. Every compromise you've made on the way is now costing your business money. Do you know where those issues are, and have you taken a conscious decision to accommodate that? Are you still pretending they don't exist and sleepwalking through your problem? Or are you proactively dealing with them to improve your business? And if you are, great, that's well done. So step 3, have clear shared goals. To be truly effective and efficient, you need clear shared goals for your business. Then you need to make sure that everything you do as a business is contributing to achieving those goals. Clearly, that means different things at different levels of the business, but for the leadership team, it requires complete alignment and an absolute focus on delivering the goals. This is not as easy as it sounds, because it typically requires tough decisions on what not to do, as well as what is required. For example, if your objective is growth, have you agreed on the best way to achieve that growth? And then, is it driving all of your investment decisions? Be careful not to get distracted by other right things to do. These are the hardest ones because they're not wrong and they may support your goals indirectly. They're really easy to make a case for, but you need to be disciplined in your decision making. Everything you do must be delivering against your desired goals, and you'll need to make tough decisions on priorities. You can't back every horse. So following on from that, step 4, be clear on areas of strategic investment. If you can get the day-to-day business operating efficiently, it'll provide the headroom to strategically invest in sales and growth. It's fine to invest ahead of the curve, and it's actually necessary to achieve significant growth, but hold yourselves to account on the results and adapt as necessary. Again, don't bet the farm, and remember you can't back every horse. So I find McKinsey's 3 Horizons model useful as a tool here. It helps to prioritise areas of focus and investment. So you'll see on the slide, first horizon is your core business, how you protect, nurture and build your core business. These are your crown jewels, and without that you've got no business. Second horizon is to build your emerging business. Pick future areas of potential to strategically focus and invest in their development. And the third horizon is to create viable future options. Think of areas of innovation that may have future potential for your business. For most agencies, the majority of the investment should be on the first horizon, to protect and build your core business, especially over this next 12 to 24 months. A significant minority of the investment should go into building your emerging business. This may need to increase in the post-COVID market as new opportunities might become available that you need to move on quickly. We're already seeing a change in some of the mix and type of work clients are looking for, and we're adapting to enable us to capitalise on these. A small minority should be focused on future innovation. So my suggestion over the next year or so would broadly be a 70-25-5 split, possibly even 70-30-0, depending on your own business and the situation that you find yourselves in. So step 5, clarity on roles and responsibilities. To enable your team to work effectively and efficiently, everyone needs to be clear on why, what, how, who, and by when. This will minimise duplication and errors and make your process run more smoothly. All this will save time and therefore money by improving the efficiency of your people and so reducing your labour cost percentage. You'll need to make sure that you've got empowered leaders and teams within the business to execute against the plan. Then measure progress against the plan and ensure people are accountable for delivery. And I find the RACI model useful here. So that's where people are either responsible, the ones doing the work, accountable, the project owner, and that has to be one person, consulted, where input is invited from them, and informed, where it's just for information only. If everyone knows what their role is in each scenario, then it allows your teams and your businesses to run more efficiently. As your teams develop and evolve, I also find it useful to consider Tuckman's model of team development. I'll show that on the next slide. So he said there are 4 stages of team development: forming, storming, norming, and performing. If you can recognise what stage you're at and acknowledge and understand that you can move up and down the stages, then you can provide appropriate leadership to coach through this to create and develop high-performing teams. And last, but definitely not least, step 6, focus on sales. New business is the lifeblood of any agency. Aside from the obvious need for additional sales to achieve growth, new business also provides a morale and motivation boost to your team. Another important aspect relates directly back to efficiency. Most businesses operate to the volume that they have. They convince themselves they're at maximum operating efficiency, but in my experience, they rarely are. If you give someone a job, they'll fill it. Putting a higher volume of work through the system generally identifies the true operating capacity, which is then directly measurable back to your people cost percentage metric. So as an example, when we first started working with one of our businesses, we were told emphatically by the directors that they knew the maximum volume of monthly work they could achieve within their existing team. Within a few months, the business was operating comfortably over 40% higher than they previously thought possible. And that was achieved just by following the stages that I'm recommending here. So, in summary, as I said at the outset, when we get the right people doing the right things at the right time, with great communication and clarity on roles and responsibilities, it stops wasting time, energy, and money, and it unlocks the true potential of the business. So remember the 6 key steps I'm recommending. Step 1, identify the issue. Step 2, have a commercial focus. Step 3, have clear shared goals. Step 4, be clear on areas of strategic investment. Step 5, have clarity on roles and responsibilities. And step 6, have a focus on sales. In my view, Our job as leaders is to create the right environment and support structure for our people to succeed. Cultural and behavioural alignment is critical across the business. If you can achieve this, then I guarantee you'll stop wasting time and money and improve the commercial performance of your business. Finally, I've got one additional but very important thing. Remember who you are. Of everything I've said today, remembering who you are is probably the most important, especially in these uncertain times, which is why I've left it to the very end. When you started your business, you were an entrepreneur. You took a leap of faith to leave your last ever job. You believed you could do it better, faster, cheaper, more creatively, with more integrity, and perhaps a host of other additional reasons. And then, as you grew, somehow it got a little bit more corporate every day, a little bit more about process, a little bit more about HR, a little bit more about formal this and legal that, all of which are necessary, but many of which can take the edge off who you really are. You are an entrepreneur, so live up to that. Maintain, nurture, and feed that spark which became the flame that ignited your passion for the business that you've built. Remain agile, the way that you thought, the speed with which you acted, and the excitement that your leadership generated in your team. If you do this, I promise you will win. That's it from me.
Great,
Thank
that's
you.
really inspiring. Thank you. And whilst people are thinking about questions and dropping them in the chat function on the right side, if you want to close your slide so we can be bigger on the screen. I think I'll ask a first question if that's all right, whilst people are thinking of their own.
Yeah.
You talked there about distractions, and you said that you can't back every horse, which is very, very true. And I think by its very nature, being an entrepreneur means that you get very excited about potential new projects and doing new things. But how do you manage that distraction? How do you manage sort of remembering what the core objectives are to avoid sort of getting sidetracked by these new projects?
It comes back to the alignment on the objectives, really, Alexandra, because if you're really clear on what your end goal is and you're all signed up to what that means, then it helps you to prioritize in the noise, because there are always 30 things that you can do, more than that, but there are probably 2 or 3 things that you should do, and there is always a payoff. So I always find that if you're really clear on what you're trying to achieve at the end, and then you work through the ideas, it's not to kill those ideas coming in. Listen to the ideas, work them through as a team, mainly as the leadership team, then to say which ones of these are directly likely to achieve our end goals, and we've got to prioritize. And you might come down to, it's a bit like the government's approach on COVID-19 now, where the science can only take you so far. The data's already there, and then you've got to make a decision. And you've got to make a decision based on what you believe will have the best outcome for the business. It's not always black and white. You've got to be prepared to work and understand and enjoy playing in the grey area, if you like, in between. Because someone's got to make a decision and then get behind it and make it a success.
Absolutely, and finding that compass for your decision making, which is, I suppose, linked to your goals. We've got a question from Neil as well. How do you maintain a great culture through major change and growth? A big question there.
I think a lot of this comes down to values, and I'm a massive fan of, when I say about cultural and behavioural alignment, I mean a lot of that is having real embedded values in your business, and not things that you just words that sit in a document or that you put up on your wall. I mean aligned behaviours, that you'll have 3 or 4 really strong values and behaviours for the business, and that helps to create a fantastic culture. As an example, when I worked at Hangar Seven, they had really well established values, probably the best business I've worked in. That when I came into the business, I was a client of theirs for 7 years. So I felt it as a client. And then actually, when I moved over to the business, I realized how authentic it was, in that it did drive a lot of the decision making, a lot of the behaviors. So the culture was really strong around that, and because everyone was aligned, then it had a kind of work hard, play hard, which worked really well for that business. Had a really strong aligned culture, basically, and it made it a great place to work. So when everybody feels good about things, it makes the tough decisions a lot easier, because your teams then trust that you're making the right decisions for the business. And particularly in tough times like this, they trust that you need that support, and then you need everybody to get behind it and move forward to keep being a success.
Thank you. We've got another question from Lucy. Could you give us an example of a time when you've changed your business structure to make it fit for purpose? How did you make the decision that change was necessary?
Probably now, in our current situation, the way what I'm doing now is working with a few different agency businesses, where basically, I'll give you an example, one in particular, without naming names. They'd been going for about 9 years, built a reasonably successful business, but a relatively small business, and actually then come to a point where they realised that they probably weren't going to get it a lot bigger by themselves, and so they had ambition for growth, basically, but didn't have the tools to deliver against it, really. So we did exactly as I'm proposing here. That we went into the business, did a proper review, and that meant properly understanding the numbers, getting a commercial focus, which needed improving. Top-down view of the business, and what that really means is talking to all the directors in depth to understand their view of their business, what they think are the strengths and weaknesses, what are their ambitions for it, check that aligns with ours and we can help. And then a bottoms-up version of it means I talk to everybody in the business individually, one-to-one, and get their perspective on it, which is often very different from the top-down perspective. Not entirely, but there are different views and different, you get a different level of knowledge. And we put all that together, you can kind of do a bit of a gap analysis that shows what's missing, what needs to improve. And very rarely is it a massive surprise to anyone, because everybody's living and breathing it. What they've not done quite often is faced into it and made the tough decisions on what you really need to do then to change from where you've been. So it's often about that, really. And that's the way we approach it, so that it's the change then comes from within the business, because it's evidence-based, because it's what the business has told us. It's what they've not had is that objective point of view and that ability to be able to say, this is what you've got now, these are the gaps, this is the improvement. Once we address those gaps, this is the result that we'll have. And then all the information comes together. You can tell, are the people working better? Are they happier? The directors are generally happier, because it's all a bit easier when it's working, and the numbers don't lie. So they tell you whether you're working more successfully or not.
That sounds like a productive exercise for any business. We've got another question from Francis. How much should roles and responsibilities be a description of what your individuals do now versus a stretch for how you want them to work and behave? That depends, I think. I think often people want clarity. So you can't ignore what they do now. They want to have clarity about what their role is, but more importantly, how they add value and what that delivers to the business. So you need to cover that to a certain degree. But I come back to the shared goals and the values again for the other thing, because I think if you get that aligned properly, then they will understand the ambition for the business. They will understand the benefits of the business ambition to them, because ultimately we can talk about growing a business all you want, but if you're not one of the owners, what's in it for me? So they have to understand that. And usually, the business, if you think about what that means for our people when you're growing a business, it generally means bigger, better, more varied client work with a creative business. If you work in a creative department, you want to know that you're going to have
something that can stretch and challenge you. Likewise, if you're growing, you're going to need more people. So we always have a culture of promoting from within, promote and develop to the level that everybody wants to get to. Not everybody wants that, but the ones that do, try and fulfill that ambition and take them along the way with you. So they then understand that when you've got that right and they've shared the vision and the values, if you like, then the extra bit about what is the future, I like to do that with them. Yeah, I always prefer to be managed upwards. What do you want? How do you think you can achieve it? What can we do to help you? So that's what I mean when I say we have the right environment and support structure. I think the leadership team is responsible for providing that support structure where it's needed, but creating the right environment to allow them to manage upwards and then create the future. Because if we get into a trap of, that's the reason I hesitate to start with, if you get into a trap where you're just doing personal development plans that are ticking boxes, forget it. It's a waste of time. You're spending too much time on it and you're not getting the end result. What you want is motivated individuals, self-motivated people who can help you get where you need to be, and you can help them get where they need to be at the same time.
Brilliant. Thank you, Francis, for saying that's very useful advice. Amazing. If you've got any more questions for Mark, just pop them into the chat box and we'll pick them up. Thank you, Francis, for that question. In the meantime, whilst people are thinking about other questions, what's the best way of contacting you if people want to sort of talk to you afterwards? I think Nick has mentioned that you are part of an agency NXT as well. So that's one way. What's another way to contact you? Is it via your LinkedIn?
Yeah, it's probably the best. I'm on LinkedIn. Just contact me there. And obviously I'll get in touch with anybody who gets in touch.
Brilliant, thank you. And just another note to mention that the webinar is recorded and this will be made available to you either later today or tomorrow, and will be covered via Prolific North as well. So are there any more questions for Mark? Any more questions going? How are you in the meantime, Mark? So obviously there are a lot of companies here that were sort of preparing for growth or planning for growth, and all of a sudden the current situation has sort of stalled those plans. What's your advice to businesses in terms of understanding what the situation is like, and almost is it a case of dusting off those plans at some point when we come out of lockdown, etc., or what is sort of the thought process behind adjusting those plans to the current limitations?
Well, yeah, the plans that you had in February are probably a million miles off now, and we're in that same situation. But look, I always think we plan for the worst and hope for the best. And what we've done as soon as this became apparent, what we did with all our businesses is start planning, basically. So look at scenario planning for how deep the impact is, how long it lasts, and what it looks like coming out on the other side, and put yourselves in the best position that you can. So, immediately it was look after your people. Yeah, are they all right? Check they're okay, check everybody's all right in themselves, working still okay if they're working. A lot of people have had to use a furlough scheme now, but still checking in on well-being, things like that. So look after your people, look after your cash as much as possible in the short term. Cut out any kind of discretionary spend where you can to protect yourselves and keep yourself in a strong position, keep the business going. But I think we're kind of feels like we're getting to the next stage of that now, though. So it was initially, let's look what it means and let's make sure we all survive. And now it's, what does it really look like at the other side? And actually what we're finding is our worst case scenario planning is not coming to fruition. So where we thought we could have been, we're not. And actually, the businesses are all doing quite well at the moment. So I think we're in a situation now where it's planning for the other side. Yes, it'll be slower. There will be a bounce back, I believe. Probably not to previous levels and not for a while. but we just have to adapt and structure for that. Keep talking to our clients, to look after your people, look after your cash, look after your clients, basically, and then look at the market for opportunities, because brands will need to come back from this. I saw your webinar the other day, actually, and one of the guys talked about that research that said brands that invested in the 2008 financial crash grew 9 times faster in the following 10 years. And that's been proven twice now, because that happened 100 years ago as well. So brands know that. The best CEOs, CMOs in the world will know that, and they will be investing. So what they invest in might change slightly. I think for us, probably for the better, in a way, in that the work that they do will hopefully be more focused around a lot of the brand work and not just bottom end conversion. So there could be some great opportunities there. And it's just looking for that, and then making sure, if you've looked after your people, your cash, and your existing clients, then you're in a stronger position to take advantage of it. And use that entrepreneurial spirit that I talked about earlier. That's it, really. Just keep behaving like you were when you were a startup, in a way, and look for those opportunities and go and get them and keep focused. Someone will have to win. You just have to make sure it's you.
Absolutely. Yes, that was really revealing for us. I think it was Paul that mentioned that brands that invested during the crisis grew 9 times faster, and the realization that we've got blueprints for this. We use the word unprecedented a lot during this crisis, but actually there's always something to be learned from history, isn't there? And that's one of the things. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Mark. If no other questions pop up on the chat box, I think this is all we've got time for today. We've got another webinar from this series on the 12th of May, and that will be featuring Tony Rafferty, so please tune in for that as well. Thank you so much for your time today, Mark, and thanks to everyone watching. And I hope you all have a productive week ahead, and hopefully see you on the 12th of May. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
See you later.
Thanks, bye.